Today we present a video cast of a fans forum hosted by me, Sam Roberts. These are unusual, unprecedented and potentially difficult times for the world and indeed the world of sport. At Bedford Blues Rugby Club we've been through a huge amount of change and we wanted to answer most, if not all, of the questions that you, the fans, have about our situation. Here to talk about the last few months and indeed the foreseeable future are three men right at the centre of the club. I have with me Chairman Jeff Irvine, Director of Rugby Mike Rayer, and Club COO Gareth Alred. Welcome to you all. We've been lucky enough to have a lot of questions. We have a lot of, knowledgeable fans. We can't answer them all individually, as many were asking similar things, but we will try and cover all the bases today for you. We will get straight into it, and perhaps the first question is maybe the most pressing for the fans, and it comes from Philip Bettles. I'm going to ask you, Jeff Irvine, to kick us off. Any idea when the 2020-2021 Championship Rugby season will start? A nice easy one for you, Jeff.
Thank you, and good morning to everybody. There are a number of scenarios that we have in place, and the most likely scenario is, and that obviously the one thing that could scupper all of our plans is a second spike of COVID-19. The best case scenario for us is that the players will return on the 1st of November, and we would anticipate starting a 22-week league-only season on or around Christmas / the New Year. And again, best case scenario would be that we would get the opportunity for a couple of pre-season friendlies late December. Now that doesn't give Mike much time. That only gives Mike 8 weeks to get the players back up to speed. So we would probably look at getting the players back for stage 1 training procedures during October, so that we can get up and running. And if that happens, and let's all hope that it does, and the only thing that can really scupper it is that a second spike of COVID. And by that time, again, our expectations are that we should be able to open Goldington Road, again, in the best case scenario of 50% of our stated ground capacity.
Jeff, I know it's difficult because there's lots of missives and lots of messages coming out from different parts of the game. I saw one recently about the RFU saying that community sort of club rugby would perhaps potentially start back in September. Can you explain what the difference is between what the RFU are talking about and our championship level game? Because obviously, again, all things being well, the Premiership will have started as well. How does it all sort of fit together?
Well, I mean, I get it from the RFU. I mean, basically, the RFU want to get community rugby up and running. If for nothing else, they want to get the clubhouses back open so that, local and junior clubs can sell a pint of beer and a pork pie and literally get the community back in the game. But the one thing for sure is that, any form of rugby that the community may attempt in September, October will not be rugby as we know it. It will be a hybrid form of the game. It might be 10-a-side. It certainly wouldn't involve scrummaging or rucking and mauling, stuff like that. So we just need to be careful that we don't confuse the issues here with a hybrid form of rugby returning. And with regard to Premiership rugby, we are watching with interest. I mean, I'm still on the PGB each week and keeping a very close eye on the testing procedures. And we're fortunate in a way that we can learn from what's happening there. I mean, the testing procedures that they are currently going through are way beyond the financial means of championship clubs. So until that testing regime changes, and again, best case scenario for us would be if the players come back on the 1st of November, we would test them all once for COVID when they come back. But going on from there, we would hope that it would be a question of you take their temperature every day when they arrive, and they then fill in a questionnaire as to what they've been doing.
Okay. We start to then think about sort of players and a squad. This is a question from Mark Taylor, and perhaps best directed at you, Mike. On a recent podcast, you indicated that we have 10 players on our books for the current season. Are they all through halfway through a 2-year deal? Is there anyone outside of that process? I mean, could you perhaps let us know who they are for certain?
Yeah, look, there's probably, I think there's 8 or 9 who are halfway through, and then there's a couple of re-signings we've had, so just after Christmas. So we got Rich Lane, Matt Wally, Grayson Hart, Sean McCarthy, Alex Penny, Joe Nona-Jaffe, Dan Tim and Joe Atkinson are all halfway through a 2-year deal. And then we've got Henry Paul, Joe Rafter, who are sort of re-signings halfway through the season. So yeah, they're the players we got in place, which actually is a great core of players, particularly front row wise, because we know how hard it is to come by, good people in them positions. So yeah, it was important we got them in place, and off the back of that, we can build and pad out the rest of what's going to be our squad, and supplemented by the Northampton players.
We'll come back to the Northampton Saints deal in a little bit. It's going to be a big talking point, no doubt. Can we talk about the club as a whole, as a business? A number of questions from Phil Thompson, and they're going to be thrown to you, Gareth, and to you, Jeff. Jeff, how has the club coped with the loss of income from the early end of the season and the RFU withdrawing funds? I mean, it says here, Phil says, with no consultation or warning. That's how it has been perceived. Can you tell us just how difficult it was for Bedford Blues this last 5-6 months or so?
Well, I mean, to be perfectly honest, I mean, furloughing, the government scheme for furloughing has saved the club. Without the furloughing scheme, I'm not quite sure what we would have done, but look, we've got a very switched on board. We've got some bright people there who, we're all working very hard. And, the aim of the board is that the rugby landscape is going to change considerably over the next couple of years. It's going to change from the top to the bottom, the whole, rugby landscape. So, in 2 years' time, goodness knows what the rugby landscape will look like. But the sole aim of Bedford Blues board and management is that, when the world returns to normality, or as near to more normality as we're ever going to get, Bedford Blues have to be in existence. We have to be in existence to pick up the pieces and move on from there. And that's what we're concentrating on, and that's why at this point in time, you won't see us rushing out to sign players to give them contracts that we can't honour.
Yeah, absolutely. Gareth, what about the situation with next season and potentially as a result, all companies, all businesses are having to work out a way of trying to address the shortfall that has been felt this season. What about things like season tickets and merchandise and food and drink? Will fans experience an uplift there to try and make amends? I mean, how will that manifest itself?
Yeah, I think not directly, to be honest, Sam. It won't be a direct impact of COVID. So from a season ticket point of view, we were ready to launch just before the pandemic hit, which was pretty frustrating for us not to get them on sale. But as such, we've had to review that. And Jeff mentioned earlier, the structure of the competition is going to look potentially somewhat different. Therefore, we are having to jiggle those prices around again. And we have had a 7-year price freeze. So I'd be lying if I didn't say there's room for a small increase. Elsewhere, merchandise sales, look, they're very much led by suppliers. We're very excited that we announced the relationship with Gilbert. Me and Mike have been working on things with them, which is very exciting, but it will be very much led by them and trying to hit the same margins as we have done in previous relationships. And then food and drink, again, very supplier-led. We have a great relationship with Marston's, who, let's face it, have had a very difficult time in this period. Actually, themselves have had a Northampton partnership by hooking up with Carlsberg, and they have shown their commitment to us by extending their deal. And we already have a contractual obligation that means the prices go up at a 50% rate of what normal incline is. It will mean that there is probably a very small increase. Sorry, Mike. But there's not going to be a huge one, and we're in a good position on those, and we've been working on lots of new initiatives. We just really, like Jeff said, want to know some definites and those dates and those structures and get things on sale, because lots of supporters have been very patient and understanding with us and actually want to support and take that season ticket option early.
Mike, can I ask about the recruitment situation? Again, Phil Thompson asks about how difficult it's been to recruit for the coming season. Obviously, in many ways there hasn't been any, but at the same time, the recruitment market has got bigger and obviously been plumped up by the fact that there are more players in the market. I mean, can you explain potentially what your thoughts are moving forward as to any recruitment and how that will take place and when that will take place?
Yeah, well, look, I think we have to go back to the start, really, in a sense that we shut down completely on sort of March 14th, 15th, whatever, same as most people. And, we're just stuck in a holding pattern, I guess, ever since, really. And just a little sort of backstory to it all. We communicated with the players, and to be fair, that they recognised they wanted to move on. So in a sense, I know there's a lot of negative news coming out about players being released and none being re-signed. It was their request; they wanted to know where they stood. So unfortunately, we had to deliver some bad news to some of the players who were releasing. So we did that to the players. And then we've tried to keep communication with guys we want to retain. But as Jeff said, it's really hard to promise something you can't deliver at this stage. So I think once we get a start date, once we get an idea of funding, we'll continue to spin our plates, really. The players are still coming through agents, but without really delving into it too deeply at this stage. We don't need that many because of the Northampton deal. We're probably only looking at retaining another half a dozen, and then who we're trying to keep in contact with at this moment in time to reassure them. But
sure,
and then recruiting 2 or 3 others to add to our core group. So that's it, really.
Okay.
Hoping to add a bit of quality to that core group to hopefully guide and be the core of the club, essentially, but then provide some experience and knowledge of this league to the exciting youngsters that Northampton have add to us.
Brian Cornish asks Gareth about finding out about leavers and new signings on the website. He seems a little bit disgruntled by the fact that we found out from Rouen that Dean Adamson was moving on. I mean, he's obviously been a very popular player, and I can understand the emotion there. But just talk about how difficult that process is to manage on social media, and how we sometimes as a club can't always be in control of those things.
Yeah, taking the Dean example first, we were disappointed too in terms of the announcement and obviously losing him. I think it's quite clear how much Mike wanted to keep him as part of Bedford, and he's obviously been here for some years. The deal, as I understand it, was done very, very quickly, less than a week in terms of them getting it done, and also us knowing within 5 days. So unfortunately, there are, I guess, protocols in this off the field, but Rouen unfortunately put that news out there without any communication from our front. We are trying to communicate more with fans than ever. Ryan's doing a great job on that front. Obviously, Sam, you're helping us with a lot of these kind of podcasts and communications, but unfortunately, we sometimes are at the mercy of others, and sometimes there's contractual things that we obviously need to bear in mind. And this summer has been very different to others as well. So we are trying our best to obviously keep supporters informed and engaged, but on that particular one, out of our control. Out of our control.
Sure. Jeff, Chris Deverell asks, why have detailed accounts been released this time around and not previously? Can you shed any light on that?
I mean, that's a very simple question to answer. I mean, there was a change in legislation which decreed that for small companies like us, that the type of information which our shareholders were entitled to.
Okay. And potentially well, obviously that will go out. I understand that. Fair enough. I mean, are there any areas of the club, Gareth, to sort of target increased income or look at making things better? I know lots of companies are looking at ways to using this time to improve things. What are the club thinking about as far as improving potential income, Gareth?
Yeah, all areas, to be honest, Sam, across the board. Look, one has been sponsorship, very difficult, you could say, to sell in this kind of marketplace at this moment and not knowing what our league is. But luckily, with the brand identity and kind of localised sponsorship element we've been very well supported. Actually, we're already ahead of target on that, which is great, but there's lots of opportunities still to come. And there's lots of companies that are obviously facing challenging times themselves, but sponsorship has been a big route to market for us to increase. And then the event side of the business, when they are able to get back in, we'll have some increased targets. The community side of the club, we obviously have the new Blues Foundation, which will hopefully open some opportunities for that community element. We're also looking at launching, exclusive to you, Sam, a Bedford Blues beer garden later this summer. We've been working on it, trying to make sure we don't fall down any of the pitfalls and making sure we're in line with all the legislation, but we're excited about being able to open our doors again.
It's not happening in my garden, is it? It's not my garden.
It's not. It's yeah.
I got suddenly very worried that I live quite close to the club. I thought something might have been happening without me knowing about that.
It's not as big as your garden, but we've got Golden Road, so we're going to use the back pitch, definitely the back pitch, not the hallowed turf or the slope. We're looking forward to running that. And then, as I said, it's across all areas. We've launched a lot of new initiatives this summer. So put your name on the shirt, put your name on the wall, put your name on anything that's going. And they've been very successful. So we're very pleased. But again, all of it's down to our pretty loyal and strong supporter base within Bedfordshire.
And I suppose that's really what this question or set of questions, and indeed Chris sort of puts his finger on it. He says, what can supporters do during this time to help the club? You know, we have the followers, which is the envy of many clubs, not only in our own league, but around the UK. We have the Friends of the Blues, sort of that again is a wonderful organisation to try and bring money into the club. Are there plans to sort of to give that opportunity to the loyal fan base to get involved if they want?
I come in there, Gareth. Yeah, look, just to say, Sam, that the support that we've had from the town and our sponsors and the community in general has been fantastic. You know, firstly in regard to the attitude that people took towards, you know, donating the rest of their season tickets, etc., etc. You know, everybody in the community has understood the position that we're in and contributed fantastically towards helping us out. And you know, when he says, you know, how can we help? That's a very simple answer to that. Is when we open the gates, come through the gate. Simple as that.
Yeah, and bring a friend.
Yeah.
And Sam, just to add to that on the organisation as well. Look, I'm not surprised that Chris has asked those questions. He's been a great supporter of every initiative we've kind of put forward. But the Friends of the Blues have already done a magnificent job, and we're about to launch a new initiative with Mike and the warm-up shirts on match day with them. So we're excited about engaging with them further. You know, Howard and Andy Barwell, to be fair, both of them have helped drive revenues to what looks like it's going to be over 30,000 a year, which is just incredible. Wow. The followers are planning to do more events, but obviously we're challenged with the current circumstances around that, but we're looking to engage with them more, and not forgetting the former players as well. The former players have been generous as well. All three organisations have made donations in this period. And they've been doing a great job to further help us out in this period. And in terms of what you can do, it's like Jeff said, it's first of all, engage with us, stay connected, which I think a lot are, which is fantastic. And then secondly, just, try to look at those other opportunities. And when the gates are open, as Jeff said, come and see us.
Can I talk kit? A new kit supplier in place, and I think we're all really, really wonderfully happy to see Gilbert joining forces with Bedford Blues again. It is a perennial question. I've been involved with the club for a long time, and this question comes up time and again about shirt design. Adrian Waring asks, will the shirt be a traditional hoop design next season? Gareth, over to you.
Well, actually, all three of us have been in this area, and actually, I'll pass the question on to my new marketing manager, actually, Mike Rea. He's been coming up with some unbelievable hashtags and planning. This one is going to be back to the future, I think, Mike, isn't it? So yeah, a bit of a play. There is some hoops involved. Everybody will be pleased to know. It is more of a traditional jersey, but with a modern twist. Mike?
Am I allowed to say anything?
He's embargoed.
Yeah, well, I think people have a harp back to the last Gilbert shirt we wore, and they won't be too far away. So it's kind of a back to the future thing. It's great to be back involved with Gilbert, and there's a fair bit of history between us and them. And I think it's actually the perfect fit, isn't it? They've got a massive brand around the world in several sports, and just for us, it's been great. Really, they've come on board. They manufacture a lot in this country, and the communication and the design team, and their stock levels are great. So for the shop as well. So I think it's just it's going to be a great partnership.
Before we get in, Sam, just to add to that, we did have a good relationship with Gilbert going back to 2003. Unfortunately, they were very new in the clothing stages then, and they would be the first to admit that they didn't cover themselves in glory going back all those years. But we will be the only rugby club in the top two divisions that will be wearing a Gilbert shirt. And Gilbert have indicated very clearly that Bedford Blues is the type of club that they want to be associated with, which I think is another statement with regard to the culture and the integrity of the club.
History and tradition are both a shared thing. If you look at their other side in Barbarians as well, that was something that gave us a good indication. And actually for our supporters, probably see some designs that are probably similar to that.
Well, probably some of their supporters still got the original Gilbert shirt.
They have, and wear it with pride, no doubt. Jeff, before we get into the final question, which I'm going to ask all of you to sort of comment on and talk about the final sort of topic around the Northampton Saints link up. Jeff, can I just talk to you with your championship hat on? And there are a couple of difficult questions because I'm not sure if you will know the answer to these, but what does the future funding of the championship from the RFU look like? And indeed, where are we headed? Where will the championship be, say, in 5 years' time?
I've got to be honest with you, Sam, I really can't answer that question. The only part of that question that I can answer, and even that's not a complete answer, is the only funding that we are nearly guaranteed is for 1 year, and even that funding is not guaranteed in its entirety. That could suffer by being ratcheted. For instance, if the RFU are not to get some people into the autumn internationals and probably be back to full crowds for the Six Nations, then it's highly likely that ratchet would come into place, and we wouldn't be guaranteed the amount of money that's currently on the table. This is all part of the uncertainty, is that with regard to Mike and recruitment, etc. As a board, we can't tell Mike what his budget is for next year because we don't know. So that's the immediate picture. With regard to the long-term picture, I don't think anybody knows the only thing that I can say with some degree of certainty is it will be different. It will not be the same.
Can I swing it round and perhaps talk about our positive point? Phil Rees wrote in with a question around this, but if it's okay with you, Phil, I'm going to repackage it and sort of give you all a chance to speak on this, because it affects the board, it affects the players, the coaching staff, the commercial aspect of the club. The deal with Northampton Saints has excited a lot of people, mainly because it seems to have secured rugby at Goldington Road next season and potentially beyond. I suppose one area of minor concern is about identity. And Jeff, maybe I can start with you. The Blues want to be their own club. They want to be their own team. And yet we do understand how important this link up with Northampton Saints is. How important is our club identity to the Northampton Saints?
Well, I thought we touched on this earlier, that, you know, the conversations that I've had at my level, at chairman and chief executive, have indicated that they regard that to be of prime importance. And it's not, you know, it's not regarded as a takeover, it's regarded as a merger. You know, when I come to talking about the deal in particular, you know, this is a blending, a merging of cultures. This is not one club taking over another. I mean, the idea is that we are going to investigate all sorts of different ways, both on and off the field, how we can work together. And obviously, they want to preserve their integrity, and we're as equally as determined to preserve ours.
Mike, from a playing perspective, how important is it that when we do get players, you know, coming in on loan from Northampton Saints, how important is it that they and that you work with them to make them understand just how important playing for Bedford Blues is?
Oh, look, I think some of that's done already, really, in a sense that, you know, Jake Sharp's coaching there, Ian Vass is coaching there, Connor Tupai played for us last year, you know, so there's, you know, and people have always gone back with favourable experiences. So part of it's kind of done, but again, it's a two-way process in a sense that, you know, once them players do come to Goldington Road and they feel the passion of the crowd and they earn respect of the crowd, you know, it'll take care of itself in my opinion. And you know, we're welcome with open arms. The chats I've had with the players already under contract to us for next year, they're really positive about it. They see us, you know, their big fear was big reductions, you know, not being competitive. But this has really underpinned all that now, and we're going in, you know, once the season gets the green light, you know, we're going in with high hopes and you know, of being, you know, very, very competitive with some of the best and most exciting youngsters in the country.
And Gareth, you can understand, you know, some fans' potential sort of anxiety over it, because the Bedford Blues identity and what the feeling it conjures up in those people who come along and belong to this wonderful club of ours, it's such an important thing. And it's so important that everyone in every element of the club feels as though that will continue.
Yeah, Sam, I think you've answered your own question. It is unquestionable the identity of this club. You know, Mark Darbin is actually a Bedford boy, so that probably helps that even more. His quote was about us matching.
He went to Bedford school, Sam.
He did. I'm aware of Mark Darbin's work. He's a quality individual. Carry on.
So I think, you know, look, his quote about the history and heritage of the club matching the Saints, I think means that there's some mutual respect between the two. Obviously, probably helped having watched Saints play. Probably, I would say, playing more of a Mike Rea brand of rugby as well. So I think we've got a lot to add to them. I think in terms of the question about identity, as I said, our supporters don't need to panic or worry about that. We know Goldington Road is a special place to be any match day, and given kickoff, we know what it's about here. Mike does a fantastic job of making sure that players buy into the culture here, whether that's staying a bit later, not disappear, merging with supporters and fans after the game. And I don't see that will be any different. And yeah, we're all pretty excited off the field. There's great chances to work together, learn from each other, and we're already working on some of them.
Mike, how much conversation has there been between you and Chris Boyd?
Yeah, we've had a couple of meetings. Obviously, Zoom early doors, but then we're a socially distanced one recently, and you know, look, he's a proper rugby man. You know, he's understands. Like myself, coming from Wales, he's from New Zealand, got a real, you know, rugby running through his blood, if you like, and he understands all about culture, all about history, and you know, I'm the biggest protector of what Bedford Blues is about, and whether it's a style of play or whether it's the you know, the passion and pride of the supporters and the belonging of the town and the club and where we all sit. So, you know, I'm a fierce believer in that, and we've got our points across. You know, that was you know, one of the main points that we actually spoke about, and he was pretty adamant that we'll get complete and total buy-in from guys when they come across, you know, they'll be told in no uncertain terms that effectively, if they, you know, can't break into our team, then there's no chance of them breaking into the Northampton Saints team. So, you know, look, we've had, you know, good success over the years through Leicester at the start of it. Then we went on to sort of start of my time. Then we moved more towards Saracens. We had quite a few of them at one time many years ago, and you know, all the players integrated. And you know, if anyone ever wants to see a picture of it working in perfect harmony, it's a picture of George Perkins scoring against Jersey on Boxing Day when we won in the last minute, you know, and you ask George and he'll tell you that's one of his most exhilarating moments he's ever felt on a rugby pitch, and he'd been to a World Cup with England, so under 20. So you know, that's what we got to try and encapsulate, and you know, it'll be myself and Alex Ray and the coaches to work hard on that, and you know, I'm pretty confident we'll get massive buy-in from the lads when they come across.
Jeff, there was a few comments on social media suggesting that this was, you know, they were surprised that wasn't this already in place? Wasn't this already something that was happening? How different is this situation to what has happened previously? Mike alluded to certain situations and deals that have been in place previously. How different is this one?
Well, I mean, basically, this is we've had all sorts of bits and pieces deals. Ironically, the first dual registration agreement in this country was actually between Bedford Blues and Northampton in 2003, and ironically, the director of rugby at that time at Northampton was Wayne Smith, another Kiwi. And he believed in it, and John Steele was the CEO. So that was the first dual registration. But this is, and I want to emphasise this is not just a dual registration agreement. This is a formal 3-page agreement, which has been worked on, you know, by all concerned. You know, Mike's played a part in it, Gareth's played a part in it, the board have played a part in it on both sides. And the 3-page document has been signed and approved by both boards, you know, as a 3-year agreement to, you know, to guarantee some continuity. So what we know from past experiences, and there's a number of examples that demonstrate how well it works, and the two that come to mind are Dan Cole, that was here for a season, and the other one more recently, you know, was Harry Wells. And you know what the system demonstrates, and Mike's always been a great supporter of this. You know, when you've got access to the player for the season, you can work with him, and then the question of identity and belonging comes into play. That the problem has been the other side of that coin, that, you know, when we've had problems with it in the past, is when players are taken backwards and forwards and they don't quite know, you know, which club they belong to. But, you know, that's not going to happen here, because we're going to have an input from the Northampton coaching staff who are going to work with Mike, and they will be, you know, they'll be over here watching their boys, so that their boys don't think that they're forgotten. So that's the absolute complete difference between that. And then going on from there, you know, within the agreement are understandings that, you know, we want to work together on all sorts of other fronts to cooperate for the mutual benefit of the clubs. But for me, and I'd be interested in Mike's take on that, you know, the big difference is going to be having complete access to a number of players, and for that access to only be interrupted in the very unlikely circumstances if they're pulled back to Northampton for a Premiership game or a European game. Yeah. You know, they will not be, you know, if there's competition between an A-League game and a Bedford game, Mike will get first choice.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. Do we know who the players are? I mean, I assume you do. And if you do, how will it be sort of played out? When will the fans know the Northampton Saints youngsters and the potential talent that will be coming down the A40 way?
Yeah, look, we do know who the players are. That is they are named in the agreement.
Okay.
It would be not appropriate to reveal them at this point in time. Gareth can help me out here, but my guess would be that they will be named at the same time as we're in a position to release season tickets for next year.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just add that. Yeah, we would try to build that in. Obviously, it's got to work for Saints as well, of when they want to release them. So yeah.
Okay. And I suppose the final point is really just how positive an outlook it is. I mean, we talk about how negative things have been and how dangerously close to the line we perhaps have trodden over the last few months. Just how positive a feeling do you have, Jeff, about Bedford Blues at the moment?
Well, we've been quite close to this line a few times in the last 20 years, Sam.
I know.
As you are well aware, my pint is always completely full, not even half full. My pint is always full, you know. So, look, I have great faith, great optimism, great confidence. I have great confidence in the people that surround me at the club. And I have great confidence in the people of Bedford. You know, there will always be a Bedford Blues, and Bedford Blues is what drives us all forward. That's the most important consideration in all of these discussions.
Mm. And Mike, you've been director of rugby at Bedford Blues for an awfully long time. You don't need me to remind you that. Has the recent situation allowed any refreshment or any sort of rebirth of where you are, what you're doing? Is there any sort of new excitement with what's happened over the last few months for you personally?
Yeah, it hasn't been an awfully long time. It's been a very good long time. So.
It's been. Listen, you know how I feel about you.
Oh, look, yeah. There's always, obviously there's time, lots of time for reflection. But as much as anything, we kind of get bogged down a little bit sometimes. And look, everything's about the detail. There's no two ways about it. But when you start looking and worrying too much about that, I have to break myself away from that state and then just think of 2,500 people come through the gates. And you know, whether I'm here, Jeff's here, Gareth's here, or whatever in 5-6 years' time, whatever the time scale is, even following season, there's still going to be 2,000 people coming to watch a game of rugby at Bedford Blues. And that's massively important to us. Obviously, the plans we're putting in place will go, some way and a huge way to securing that in kind of the short term, or say short three-year term, if you like. That's the plan. And beyond that, the club's still going to be there. Gareth Davis always says to me, it says 1886 on that flag, and it'll still stay that in 100 years. I'm convinced of that. So. We're all passionate about the place, and we do our level best to make sure it works. But as you say, that there is a level of reflection going on. There is rugby going on with the Super Rugby stuff. So we're looking at trends and things. There's always something to get your teeth into. Well, I'm interested to go across to Cambridge, have a look out, see how the community side is managing that first stage of return to training. And I'll be going over across to Northampton as well to see how the stage 2 is looking. In a week or so's time. So yeah, look, plenty of stuff to be getting your teeth into. Obviously, I feel for the players at this moment in time. They're desperate to get back in, desperate to get their hands on a ball, desperate to get through some contact. But again, we've come this far now. We just need to be sensible in how we approach the return to train, return to play protocols, and the time to get excited is when we get that green light for the season start date.
And Gareth, finally, the fans, the dear Bedford Blues supporters remain very firmly in your thoughts as a club, and you want to keep this dialogue going, and you want to hear from people and how they can help, and these sorts of things, what we're doing here, trying to give people answers, that's all part and parcel of where we want to be headed.
Yeah, I mean, Mike alluded to it. Look, we've got a fantastic fan base here at Bedford, haven't we? I mean, I have to admit, probably haven't had a huge amount of time reflection here, because we've kind of been fighting tooth and nail to obviously keep initiatives and keep things going, and our supporters have been unbelievable. Jeff mentioned from literally the first piece of news when the game was, or the league was cancelled, and refunds and donations and different things. I mean, just overwhelming sway of people who really care about this club. Whether that's been selling 1,000 face masks or one of the other initiatives that we've launched, and we should have more to come. So the message is stay with us, stay connected, and as Jeff said and Mike said, we'll be back and hopefully having that pint together and watching some great rugby.
Thank you all for answering these questions, and thanks to you and everyone who has been working for and on behalf of Bedford Blues this last 4 or 5 months. There was some glib comment from another fan on a message board about the Blues always being okay. They will always be okay, Bedford Blues, but I and so many of the fans are aware that doesn't happen by accident. There isn't some magical potion employed. It's down to hard work and dedication to this famous club that we all love so much. So thank you. And as you say, here's to rugby starting again very soon. Thank you, chaps. Thank you very much indeed.